Okay, welcome to the November 14th RSU Withdrawal Committee meeting. Call the meeting to order. First order of business is to accept the minutes of the October 14th meeting.
Motion to accept.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed?
Before we go to the next one, can I make a motion to allow Mark and Dan to speak at these meetings since they're not Raymond residents?
Yes, you can.
Second.
All in favor?
Okay.
Just a couple of notes that I want to go over before we get into the meat and potatoes here. There will be written minutes and notes for the meetings. Sue Look is going to be doing that, but she broke her leg, so we've agreed that for this meeting she's going to transcribe those off the video. But people do need to recognize too that in Raymond the official minutes are the recorded minutes. So anything that, if there's ever a conflict between the written minutes and the video minutes take priority. And while we're on broken legs, it seems to be an epidemic in town, because I understand that Jenny Cummings also broke her leg, so we wish her good luck and speedy recovery on that as well. So the intent for tonight is to kind of go through where we're at, what we need to do, and then the second part is how do we engage and bring in the community into helping us get information on what they want to see and how we're going to get there. So what I wanted to do first is have Mark Eastman and Dan Stockford just give a brief introduction of themselves, because they've done a number of these withdrawal things, and that way people in town can kind of get an idea on what their expertise is there and why we brought them on to help us, and then we'll move on from there. So, Mark?
Shall I start?
Sure.
I retired as a school superintendent after 26 years from the Oxford Hills School District in 2010. And after that have been an educational consultant, worked with about 14 different districts across the state of Maine. A number of them around the issue of withdrawal. And most recently, Dan and I worked with the town of Sebago, and they completed a successful withdrawal and began their new school system as of July 1. The recent November elections, we've been working with the town of Limestone, and the town of Limestone voted also to withdraw. And so we'll be helping them get their school system set up for beginning July 1 this next year. We've done a number of these. Not all communities vote to withdraw, but once they initiate the process, as you have, it's an opportunity to discover all the issues that they have to face as their own school unit, as well as dealing with the current school units in terms of developing a withdrawal proposal, and to see if that withdrawal proposal provides what the citizens want for their school children. And I've also had a number of, Dan and I both, situations where it wasn't withdrawal, but it was a solution that was different than withdrawal. And after 4 years, we just, working with the town of Newry, which is where Sunday River obviously is located, we helped them negotiate a cost-sharing agreement, which was passed by the school district. So, but it wasn't a speedy process, trust me. I've also had an opportunity during that time, during my retirement time, to do some other things, fill in as interim superintendents and so forth. Really very careful about getting overloaded with clients. And when we start this process, realize I represent the town of Raymond and nobody else. So, and that will be my focus. So, Dan?
My name's Dan Stockford. I'm an attorney at the law firm Brandon Isaacson. Our office is in Lewiston. I've been practicing school law for over 25 years and represent a number of school districts, both municipal school districts, RSUs, AOSs, and for the past roughly 10 years, I've represented a large number of school, or rather municipalities, in connection with school withdrawals. Been on both sides of the equation. Have represented RSUs in negotiations with municipalities that have sought to withdraw. But in most cases, I've represented towns like Raymond that are seeking to withdraw from their RSU. About 20 different withdrawal situations that I've been involved in, and a number of those I've worked with Mark, and I think Raymond has made a good decision to get an educational consultant involved, because Mark's expertise can go a long way in not only developing the withdrawal agreement, but also advising on budget issues and operational issues that the town needs to look at if you become your own independent municipal school unit. You need to start preparing for that, and that expertise is invaluable. So I think between Mark and I, we've probably seen pretty much everything that all the different permutations of withdrawal situations, and as Mark pointed out, in some cases the decision has been made that withdrawal isn't necessarily the ultimate result or goal, and we've advised on different alternatives and work to achieve what the goals of the town are. So, but look forward to working with you, and
We're glad you're here. Yeah.
Well, thanks. It's good to be here.
Ralph,
Yep, sure.
I just want to make a comment. I don't believe we're going into this with a preconceived notion that we're absolutely going to withdraw. I think there's other alternatives, as you said, that sometimes you reach a point where maybe negotiations lead to a different setup versus an RSU or an AOS, or, so I don't want anyone to think there's this preconceived notion that we're absolutely going to start withdrawal process right away. I mean, these lead to different discussions, and hopefully we all are open-minded about where we're going with this. So.
If I can piggyback off of him, comments that are being made is that we've already tried to withdraw and it was a failed withdrawal. That is not the case. And it's being said from Wyndham Council is that this was a failed. We felt that when we started this program, we actually negotiated a pretty good cost sharing agreement, and we didn't have to pay for, we got our percentage lower. And right now, there's 82% is Wyndham kids, 18% is Raymond kids. And if we were still at that original ratio, we would still be paying 45% of that budget. And right now, I think this year it is 35, and Wyndham is paying 65, is what it is. So it was not a failed. Actually, it was a very good compromise, solution for Raymond. And unfortunately, because in my opinion, it isn't being adhered to, this is why we're back to where we are. But I just wanted to clarify that it was not a failed withdrawal effort.
I was the chair of that committee back in 2015, wasn't it? Right? I actually think that if we had pursued withdrawal, we would have won. I think the town was ready to leave, but I think what we negotiated, I thought was a pretty good deal for the town, and so, but it wasn't as tightly sealed, I guess is the word, contractually, that we should have done. And I think that's where we fell short. I think we were trying to be too frugal, didn't get an attorney involved when we should have during the negotiations. And I think there were some loopholes in there that Wyndham decided to take advantage of. And that's what brings us back to where we are today.
This is our cleansing process, I'm noticing.
Well, no, I
here.
just,
No, I know.
I want people to know,
Yeah.
but I think in 2015, we could have withdrawn.
I think
I
we
think
could
the
have too.
town would have supported us, but.
All right.
It's important to realize, I think, since Dan and I have been doing this work, is the state has tightened up the process.
Right.
And we were able to, if you had two willing participants, we were able to move through the process fairly quickly. And now the state does not allow you to do that. If you don't have a withdrawal agreement approved by the commissioner by the end of
July,
June,
yeah, July 1st.
July
yeah.
1st, you cannot take a November vote. And so I think has had a tendency to stretch the process out a little bit, Dan. And sometimes through the process of negotiation, there's some deliberate, taking a little extra time, knowing that these constraints are on us. So this is not a process that's going to happen immediately. And I think you should be aware of that. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Well, I
agree
don't think
with
the
that.
process should happen. I mean, we need it to take a lot of time because I think there's a lot of people out there that want to make sure that if this is a decision we go in, and I've got to be honest, that's not where my heart lies right now for us. But I'm very open-minded to hearing what we've got, what we're gonna explore, and I think it's good that we have you here to help us go through that process at a good cadence to really look at it in the best interest of the students.
Absolutely. I agree.
Not the town, the students.
Agreed.
Okay, so that leads us to what is the timeline as laid out in the act? Where are we? And then it's obvious that we're going to have to get an extension because the timeline that exists in there can't be. We're behind that. So we know we're going to have to go for an extension. So what's our process there?
Yeah. So as you know, the law provides that we have 90 days to negotiate an agreement. And that has never happened in my experience. And the department routinely gives extensions upon request. I can't recall how many extensions have been granted in Newry, but Paula Gravel at the Department of Education came up with a spreadsheet
Not take
showing.
4 years.
Yeah. It was a lot. All it involves, as far as getting an extension, is sending an email to Paula Gravel saying, we're requesting another extension and providing the date for the additional 90 days. And that is their practice, to extend it by 90 days. And I think probably the most efficient way to do it is, I have a tickler system, so I can just send out a prepackaged email
Yeah, thanks.
when we see the date is coming up, and they will issue another extension. I need to get clarification from Paula as to what date they're using for the 90 days. I originally took the view that it should be the date of the organizational meeting for the first meeting of the withdrawal committee. I can't recall whether that's the same.
It was a little bit cloudy because there was somehow the original request letter got buried on her desk.
Yeah, it
and
did.
so it wasn't timely in her response to us on when that was. So it's really a little bit in question as to what the actual date that they're thinking it is versus what we're thinking it is.
Yeah. So I think what I would propose is that I touch base with her.
Mm-hmm.
We reach an understanding as to where we are, what our current deadline is,
Mm-hmm.
and then I think while I'm doing that, I might as well request the 90 days, and then I'll send you all an email just clarifying sort of where we are and what our what our extended deadline will be once they approve.
Now, would we be copied on anything that your course, I'm just thinking if you're speaking on our behalf, I would personally want to know what it is that
Yeah,
is being said.
yeah,
Okay.
I would plan to copy you all
Okay,
on my
great.
correspondence with the
Thank you.
department.
I think we got 180 days last time, and I think they gave us 100. Did they knock it down to 90?
They used to be more,
That's what I was
Generous.
wondering. Yeah, exactly. That's why I was wondering, going,
Yeah.
we got 180
Yeah,
last time.
yeah,
They gave us,
their current practice is to
90.
just keep extending for
Okay.
90 days. I think, in extraordinary circumstances, they may give longer, but I don't anticipate it based
Do
on
the
the-
90 then.
yeah.
You know best.
Yeah, yeah. So I will copy you on what I send to her, and I will keep you posted as far as what the response date timeframe is.
You are on step 8
Step
of the
8.
process. If you look on the state's website,
That's what I was trying to
there's
figure out.
22 steps. And step 8 is probably the longest step because it's negotiating the withdrawal agreement. So when you're thinking of that whole process, some of the steps go along fairly well. But at this point in time, you're mathematically a third of the way through the process, but realistically not.
Do you have all our contact information?
I need to get
Okay.
it all. I have
Well,
Teresa's
even
and
if they can
Rolf's.
send it to Rolf, Rolf can send it to us too.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But yeah,
Oh,
you-
okay.
I mean, I would like to see the 22 steps to go through. If you have that in a PDF or something to
We-
send.
Absolutely.
It's on our
do.
website it's under the withdrawal 2. There's 1 and 2 on our website. our
So
town website.
it's on the town website?
Yes. And what we do is so people can go right to it to figure it out.
Okay.
So we've been updating it as we go.
And the video links and everything will be on that same spot. So-
Okay.
So if anyone from the town is looking to get information, all they need to do is go to that RSU withdrawal
Okay.
to section on the website, and they can pull up the video. They can pull up the videos of any meetings. They can pull up
Good.
any data and things that we've put up there. So that way they've got full access to any of that information that's coming up.
Yep.
So we do have a record of how many hits those get, do we?
I believe
Okay.
Kevin
Yeah, Kevin or
Can-
Sue may.
can tell you how many people have gone and accessed
Mm-hmm.
and pulled that information. I know on videos they can tell how many views there have been, but
There's
I would
ours-
suspect that page views are tracked as well.
There's RSU 2014-15 withdrawal effort, and there's the 2018 RSU, so you can click on that, and it gives you the breakdowns, it gives you what,
Okay.
and stuff like that.
Great.
And Sue is gonna be the one that's updating that. Yeah, the letter to the commissioner went 8/21.
But we didn't get approval until October.
Right, it was, that's why I say, it got a little fuzzy there because
She put it underneath other papers.
she, when she sent the letter out, it was tardy coming back out because it got buried on her desk. So, she actually held it longer than she was supposed to. So, then it's a question of what date she was counting as the start date. Is it the date that she actually sent it, or was it the date that, so. But if you can get that clarified, because no matter what, once we know, once you get set, then you know where the markers are from there out. so.
Correct.
Okay, so then I guess we get into the process for getting the separation agreement done.
I think we can tag team this one as well. The first thing we need to do is identify those things that are high priority to Raymond. And that probably we should set aside a meeting for that, probably our next meeting. And there are about a dozen critical areas that we will talk to you about. But we need to know what your position is on those areas. And that, most of that is probably gonna have to be done in executive session because it's part of the negotiations process.
Right.
So, and we can talk to you about strategy for negotiations. We've used a couple of different approaches. I wouldn't say it's a typical approach, but it's committee to committee, where you have a spokesperson and all committee members are at the table, and it's a lot like perhaps teacher negotiations, if you're familiar with that, where there's an opportunity to trade proposals and then caucus and try to look for areas of common ground and come to a conclusion on each of the issues.
Can I clarify that, Mark? Is it a full committee, like is this entire withdrawal committee dealing with the entire school committee?
No.
It's a subcommittee of the
They will
school
have a
committee?
subcommittee.
Okay.
And now, that's one approach. Another approach might be the chair of the withdrawal committees and the consultant or the lawyer meeting at the direction of the committee, especially if it seems like not much progress is being made. And sometimes there's the dance that goes on when you're doing that, negotiating in that fashion with larger groups. And we've done it both ways. And sometimes when you get a little frustrated, that's the time you go 2-on-2 or
Yep.
something like that. And I've had some experience in doing that, and so has Dan, and it's just, we get a level of comfort from them as well, maybe with Sandy, and probably Bill Stockmeyer will be,
Yep.
I don't know who the
You
chair
mentioned that,
of
yeah.
their withdrawal committee. I don't know if they've gotten to that point where they've selected a withdrawal committee.
Chris Howe had a meeting with them,
Okay.
is what it is, and I watched it, and he said what they're gonna do is possibly wait until January to form a committee.
Mhm.
And I guess one of my big questions is, that I really have a problem with, is having Sandy Prince and Chris Howe, because they're representing the RSU. I mean, they're the superintendent and the assistant superintendent negotiating for Wyndham, technically, because that's who we'll be dealing with, even though they're the RSU. But how does that actually, I think, play out fairly? Because here we got Raymond, that we're trying to, I think, do what's best we think for our kids in Raymond and our town, and you have the superintendent negotiating a contract, which ultimately will be Wyndham for their schools. Does that make sense, what I just asked?
It does. It makes complete sense, but it's the way we
No,
that's the way
right,
we do it.
right.
Would you have
Yeah.
any other comment on it?
Yeah, I mean, I believe that the superintendent and the assistant superintendent will be and should be taking direction from the board, or at least the portion of the board that doesn't include Raymond representatives.
Right.
I think it tends to put the superintendent in a somewhat awkward position.
Yes,
And,
yeah.
and I think that's what you're,
Yeah.
that's what you're pointing out.
Because he's still technically an employee of the school, but he's fighting for Wyndham. But then you also have Bill Stockmeyer that's representing the RSU, which technically Raymond and Wyndham are the RSU. See, it's
Yeah, and you're paying
messed
a
up.
good percentage of those bills. right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
So it's messed up doing that, but I'm willing to work through whatever process. And again, glad that you guys are here for that. So.
Sandy really is representing the board, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, but at some
Dick
point.
Spencer said that before, last time we went through this, yes.
And Katie's role, she may have some questions about her role in this whole process.
Right, yeah.
And
I will
we
be
need to
excluded
clarify.
from any.
Yeah, that's right.
Negotiations.
When they
Yeah.
go into executive session, I
Mhm.
expect you'll
Yep.
be excluded. Can you ultimately vote on the withdrawal agreement? You can, but usually it puts you in a tough spot.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, and you may have already understood where you stand on
Mhm.
that. So,
How did you get nominated for this, by the way, can I ask? Did you get nominated or did you get?
No, we discussed.
You did?
We discussed. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, I was wondering how that went down too, because you're in an
Yeah.
awkward position.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a discussion. I think some of it's my background too. I work in education. I work statewide in education, so I have a lot of background in how
What do
things
you
work
do?
in schools. I'm a consultant. I do project management for some different statewide educational initiatives.
Oh,
Initiatives.
Cool,
Yeah,
great.
yeah. So it's
So
good.
you bring a little different perspective to
Mhm.
the table, which is
Mhm.
great. Awesome.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So essentially, there's really nothing we can do along those lines until the RSU forms their committee. So we know, other than, we can, at our next meeting, we can have a strategy session on where our key points are, but there's really no interaction until they form their committee.
Yeah. In most cases, the town that is seeking to withdraw will develop a proposal and share it with the RSU, either the superintendent or the attorney. We can talk about sort of what the best mode of communication, and then the RSU will meet to review that proposal and either develop a written counter proposal or we would schedule a meeting to discuss the proposal that has been made. So I think that your primary mission to move the process forward would be to work with us in developing that initial proposal.
And these are all confidential, obviously.
Absolutely.
They're not like FOIA
Well,
eligible.
until you share the proposal with them, it would be confidential as a attorney-client privilege
Right.
document.
Right.
Once you share it with them, I don't believe there's a confidentiality provision in Maine law that makes it
Really?
confidential once it's shared.
So how do you go through a negotiation when you're giving them a document that is your first pass, and then all of a sudden it goes to their board and it becomes public information?
They may take it in executive
Yeah,
session though.
I mean, I think in most cases they're not publicized by the parties.
Right.
But if there was a
A FOIA?
FOIA request,
Somebody can actually get it.
Yeah.
Because I think Chris Howe, again, I think he was advised is what it is, but he said that this is not what Raymond wants. It's a negotiation, and that's when he said that when we approach it to him, they will go in executive session.
Yeah.
Minus poor Kate over here.
I just requested that it goes at the end of the evening, so I
Yeah,
can
there
just
you
go
go,
home.
exactly. But I'm surprised that because when they did their shared maintenance agreement, everything was in executive session. Nothing was done publicly on that too. So I figured the same thing where this would probably be. I think for people, for the people of the town of Raymond, I think they're going to want to know what's going on. To be honest.
Well, this may be time to go into point 6, which is review the procedures for executive session when determining negotiating positions. And it's as much, I think people in here have a pretty reasonable idea of what that is, but we always have to remember we're talking to the town right now, and so that it's not, we don't get into a perception there that, now they're trying to keep information away from us. But when we're developing this, I think it's important they understand what the purpose of executive session is, how that works, what the rules and what binds discussions and outside dissemination of anything from that, how that works, so that they can understand that if something is discussed in there, they're not going to know about it. And it's not because we're trying to hold it back from them, but it's because of what the nature of it is at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, I think the reason there needs to be the ability to talk in executive session about strategy and negotiating positions is, it's a negotiation, and
You're not watching what you say.
Right.
You can relax.
Right,
Yeah.
right, exactly. There's 2 provisions in the Freedom of Access Act that apply to these executive sessions. One is there's a provision that when parties are negotiating or developing negotiating positions around disposition of property, which these negotiations involve, if public discussion would affect the competitive or bargaining position of the parties, then the law allows a discussion in executive session. In addition, the withdrawal committee has the ability to meet in executive session to consult with legal counsel, and that's an additional basis for the executive session. But it would be untenable if you had to, you had to disclose to the public every negotiating tactic or position.
It would not be done.
Yeah. So, but I think you will want to build in opportunities for public input as part of the process. So, in the course of negotiations, it's appropriate for you to solicit input from, and I understand from the discussion you've already had, you intend to do that. So, as the both, as far as what proposals and concerns citizens of Raymond have, what issues they want addressed, but also, as you get proposals back from the district, you'll likely want to allow an opportunity to get input from citizens of Raymond about what is their feeling about what is being proposed by the district. So not everything needs to take place or should take place in executive session, but certainly strategy discussions about proposals. It's in Raymond's interest for those to occur in executive session.
So Rob?
Yeah.
So if we're going to set up a next meeting to talk about priorities, isn't it now that seek input from the public, from the Raymond public, that says, okay, what are your priorities, as part of this withdrawal process? What would you like to see happen as part of a withdrawal process? Is it now or after? Because if you're asking us what are our priorities, they're just going to be our preconceived priorities. Maybe the town is thinking differently than we are. I don't know. But how do we seek public input?
I got a lot of input when I was getting the signatures, which I was really surprised. And I'm hoping that as we do these meetings, more people watch this and step up and or come and send things. But a lot of them don't want to be paying for.
But, a lot of it should not be financially based.
Because I would say I hear the opposite of what Teresa heard that day. That, the folks that we also probably keep company with people that have some of the same visions and values and stuff as ourselves. Not saying that you have totally different values than me. That didn't come out.
You don't want to hang around people, Teresa.
But I live in a pretty populated neighborhood. We all have young children, and I can say that the consensus from what I've heard is not to withdraw. So I think I agree with you 100% that I think we need to get their input, at least to help guide some of those priorities.
These are, we want to get all these ideas out, but I guess, it's easy for, people say, okay, we don't want to withdraw, okay, that's fine, but why is it? What is it that you're seeing
absolutely.
that you feel is that's not going to be there if we withdraw?
Yep.
Because now that becomes an important item to look at. Is it, we don't want to withdraw because we're comfortable with where we are? Is it we don't want to, but if it's we don't want to withdraw because we feel we're going to lose this?
Yeah.
Well, the fact is that may not be the case.
Yeah.
Right?
No, I
So-
agree with you 100%.
Yeah, so
I'm with you.
so then the point would be, how do we get those people to come to talk to us.
Yes.
Well, that's what's gonna
Because,
ask them.
you know, hearsay is great, you know, hearsay is one thing, but,
Right.
you know, to have people actually come and say, here's where my concerns are, here's what I, you know, I don't like blue, but I like red.
Mhm.
I don't like orange, but I like green. You know, let's, you know, what is it, you know, where are the things? Because now we can formulate positions that say, okay, how do we make that palatable to them?
And research things,
So,
and look, I
You know,
agree. Yeah.
And so then the real question becomes, okay, those meetings, are they better done as a work, you know, I would think they'd be better done more as a workshop than as a formal meeting.
What about having a workshop, like when we did our first one with you, Joe? Remember, we had the subcommittee set up when we did it in 2015. We had the whiteboard up here, everything, putting notes up here and getting ideas from input from people as to what everybody's looking for. But here's one of my biggest concerns is, how do we get people to come out to these meetings? It's awful. It's and you know, we had somebody speak up last night going, how do we get people to be on committees? You know, and how did you see it do in other towns? You know what I mean? How did they get them to come out to get these? And there's certain things that you do have to negotiate. Chris Howell did go through that, like the bus fleet, like the debt service. Is there certain already like topics already that you have to negotiate?
Absolutely.
And then it's throwing in, I guess, our extras is what it is.
The analysis of why communities feel like they need to withdraw provides a lot of information for us to think about. And Joe mentioned it's not about financial. In most communities, that's a secondary issue. It's not every community is it a secondary issue, but most communities are concerned with the quality of education that their children are getting. And are they getting the same programming and opportunities in Raymond as if they were at Wyndham Primary or wherever? I mean, we know they go to Wyndham at what, 9th grade?
Yes.
At this point. Is the 8th grade program offering the same opportunities for Raymond children as it is for Wyndham children? I mean, those are the types of areas where parents begin to raise concerns. Somehow, is there a possibility that we might lose our middle school because of maybe a new middle school in Wyndham? I mean, and you know, at this point, I haven't done enough research to know the answer to that question. But the concern about what their children are receiving for educational services is, and the fear of losing a school, have driven a lot of these across the state. So
That's a possibility right now because the middle school is number 5 for Wyndham right now. That
On
so
the state list.
yeah,
Say this.
and they've been researching as to what the other schools were, you know, and elementary schools and stuff like that. And I know that they can be expensive, but in this case, if we're paying more tuition per student here in Raymond because we don't have as full of schools, but you've got a middle school that they're building, why would you not want to close down the school here to combine the kids to save on that money, you know? And it's something that we have to consider, you know? So right there, you kind of threw 2 things in there, like loss of school and the education is, do we have to send our middle schoolers in Raymond to Wyndham? Is that going to be a possibility? You know, so that's something that we would have to look at too.
And I think these are things we need to keep in mind, but we can't make that assumption either.
No.
I mean, we don't want it being said that we're assuming we're moving forward on the assumption that that's what would happen. I mean, we just need to keep them in mind.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. These are just
Yeah.
different things that are big things that could play into all of this. You know, as we watch this middle school unfold type thing too. But we would not be due diligent if we didn't consider those things.
And Raymond is a school choice town. It voted overwhelmingly to retain school choice. So that's important to remember. It was about a 3-to-1 vote to keep school choice.
So Wyndham children, Raymond children can go to Wyndham or to any other
Any other
school
school.
in the area.
Including
And-
private schools.
Yeah.
Okay, up to the rate that,
Exactly.
the
It
state
used-
rate that you'd pay.
Right, well, it used to be whatever Wyndham tuition was,
Okay.
that is what we would pay to a private school.
Okay,
But since we became an RSU, we pay whatever the state tuition rate is, whatever the state determines the tuition rate to be at the private school. So it's costing us a lot more money.
oh,
I mean, we're not paying the same tuition rate that we pay to Wyndham.
Right.
There's an
so are you
increased
saying if you
cost.
send a child to Freiburg Academy, you're
Yes.
paying the Freiburg Academy tuition
Rate,
based
yes.
on the state
Well,
rate?
not the entire cost, but whatever
It's
the state
the state
determines.
determined rate.
Right,
Right.
which
Yeah.
is higher than the Wyndham
Right.
rate.
I bet.
Yeah.
There's some
Okay.
kind of a surcharge to it.
Yeah, it was a 5%.
Right. So, that's not the way it used to be. As a matter of fact, we used to take, Raymond School Board used to negotiate a 10% discount with every other school in the area until we formed this RSU. And then it's costing us $50,000 or more for private students because of the surcharge and everything else that we're paying.
Interesting.
So, but I want to make sure we keep that in mind, that Raymond is a school choice town.
Yeah.
But it brings back, it circles back to what have you seen works to get people to come in and give input? I mean, because that's where we need to get, to take this the
Yeah.
next step. We need to get people to tell us what their fears are, what they would like, if we withdraw, what do they want the animal to look like? How do we get them in here to tell us that? Because we need that in order to develop the strategy.
Yeah. I mean, I think that there probably is some value in sort of framing the issue for the public, framing the issues, and in the next meeting where we talk about issues, it may be helpful to identify issues that this group thinks that it would be helpful to get input on, and perhaps in scheduling a workshop meeting, doing it in a way, framing it in a way that we want input from the public on this set of issues. What is your priority as far as preserve education for high school students? And I expect we're going to, that may not be a particularly complicated one, because I suspect that that's probably going to be the priority for most.
I think it's important that if you
For
have
most
school
reasons.
choice, people can continue to send their kids to Wyndham even if we withdraw from the
Yeah.
RSU.
Yeah.
That's important. That's a
Yeah.
real important thing. If you have a kid in the school system right now that you want to go to Wyndham, there's no reason, even if we withdraw, that you can't send your kid to Wyndham.
Those are some of the emails that I got, and they're worried about this process playing out. Would their student be booted? I cannot see any Wyndham educator or staff or whatever cutting that, and I think that we would put that in. We would have to put that in a negotiation.
We have to have,
Yeah.
we have to have a contract to receive
We,
the
we,
school anyway.
we do, but we would not.
You have to have
Nobody,
a school of guaranteed acceptance.
Right.
Well, exactly, and we
Exactly.
got that from several last time, but I can't see any school booting a kid out. I really can't. That's not, if that's the case, then they're not in it for the kids, for the education then. I really don't see Wyndham at all. Exactly, no. So that to me isn't even, and I just told people, I said, your child's there. I said, your child has the right to go there. They have choice, and I cannot see Wyndham ever booting them out of there. The only issue that might arise is, and I don't know where that 82% is, but we had it happen with Poland, that Poland could not give us a contract because they could not take our kids. They were already full. It was a new school, and they could only take siblings at the time as far as high schoolers. So that was one of the schools that we would not have, an agreement with then, but it's also, that was before consolidation too.
And I-
But that 82% is also middle school, elementary schools, and stuff like that. So, yeah.
And when you look at in my opinion, the school population declining the way it is.
Demographic.
There's opportunities out there, so I'm not too concerned.
It's rare that a school district would turn down tuition.
Right.
Money. You have to be some really serious
Right.
overcrowding issues that they're facing. So.
Right.
And Poland was upfront with us about that
Yeah.
too. They were great about it, yeah.
One of the things that usually is my role is to interface with the administration, because we will need information along the way. And so what I probably would do, unless you have objection, is sit down with the business manager and the superintendent and just say who I am, and from time to time, we're gonna need information, and, I want to have that relationship, and I don't know the business manager, but I know the
Chris Howell,
superintendent.
he's pretty cool.
And
Yeah,
he's
so-
he's prepared. He
Great.
knows that you'll be, at some point, he's gonna
Good.
have to provide information.
Good. So I don't see that as a problem, and it's really helpful to have that information, so especially demographics, as we look ahead,
Mhm.
with some of the issues at school districts across the state, maybe not at RSU 14, but enrollment decline in 14 of the 16 counties is a real
Yeah.
issue. So,
That's what we have, yeah.
and I don't know what your demographics are in Raymond, but I sense that, from what I've heard, is that you have less population in your schools than you did 5 years ago, in
Oh,
these
yeah.
schools.
I think
Yep.
there's 224 at the elementary school, and there's 188, I think, at the middle school, and I think we only have 128 high schoolers. I thought it was 116, I wasn't sure, so yeah.
Yeah,
I think
and it could
there's-
be
and I think
116.
there's
How does that compare with 5 years ago?
32 that are-
Wyndham's
that
been pretty
are-
flat.
When I was on the school committee, there was a projection that in
Yeah, I just
2020,
wrote it down the other
we would
day.
have over 1,000 kids in our schools.
Yeah, no.
That's how we got the approval for Raymond Elementary School
Okay.
and expansion of the middle school,
Okay,
because the demographics showed us going like this. It
That hasn't
plateaued at
happened,
like
yeah.
700 and something,
gone
and
down
we've gone
since.
down since.
And I think Wyndham is just on a mad growth as far as permits, application permits and stuff like that. But I think their school numbers are still pretty flat
I
yet.
think they're flat right
Yeah,
now.
so they've been flat for a little while, so, but then, like I said, those numbers, 82% to 18%, so it's a big difference.
what's the reason they're number 5 on the middle school list? Is it
Because
an
they're-
antiquated,
they're- well,
obsolete
1970.
facility? Okay, so it's not necessarily enrollment push, it's,
Well, some of it is.
Some of it's enrollment, but it's also,
It's a maintenance
it's also
issue.
an age of facility and
Aren't they in
Condition.
2 schools, though? They're in the middle school and they're in that
Feel that.
Field Allen
Yeah.
School is what it is. So they have to walk, some of them, I think, have to walk to the middle schools, and, yeah.
so
It's
the
pretty-
original middle school won't accommodate
Right.
Right.
all the children that are going there. Okay, that's helpful.
But they put in, according to Chris Howell, they put in just for Wyndham students' numbers is what they put in for. They didn't put in for any Raymond students. So I think, I think
Yeah.
that's,
Yeah.
yeah. So I don't know how many more, but they said one of the things that they want to be able to do is, if that gets built, projected out another 20 years to be able to handle more kids coming in or whatever, so, yeah.
When they built their high school, they had to use
Yeah,
the
but
Raymond kids
I didn't
Sure.
think the state allowed
to
you to
get the
project 20.
allowance.
number.
Get that
Chris,
number.
I think Chris just did that.
Oh,
Chris
okay.
said that they don't want to come back, is what Chris
Yeah,
said.
but
They
it-
want to build that school nice and strong, so it
It
withstands
seemed to
everything.
me when, because I was on the middle school committee way back when, too.
How far
Back in one of my previous lives. But they wouldn't let us project out more than, I think they would only let us project it was either 5 or 8 years.
Right.
In trying to project population as far as what the sizing of it had to be, so.
I think maybe Chris was just trying to talk.
Well, yeah, I
Just
mean,
to say,
yeah.
hey, 20 years, we want this thing to last this long.
Well, you
You
got
have
a
to
building,
project
you
it.
want it to,
Yeah.
you've got a 20 or 25-year useful life, so you want
Mm.
to see if what it'll hold. So
God,
that
it's
that makes sense from
1970,
that
that was
standpoint,
30
but not
years
from the
and then
sizing that
some.
the state's going to allow you to do.
You got a 50-year building,
Yeah,
Yeah.
so.
so, yep.
Okay, so in the ones that you've done, what are the logical subcommittees that you typically would see? I mean, obviously you've got budget, you've got negotiation, you've got, you know, possible program enhancement and things like that. The one that I think that we would want to also have would be an intertown cooperation group to look at that, because Raymond has had in the past, you know, and then when the consolidation happened, it went away, but you know, we've had the Raymond One concept, or the One Raymond concept, which says, okay, if there's areas that make sense to utilize combined efforts between the town and the school, do that rather than having two separate entities doing essentially the same thing. So, in other words, what can Public Works do to help on things like that? What can we do from the IT side to work there? What can we do from the accounting side and things like that to, you know, so I foresee some good initiatives that can take place in there, combining things there. Obviously, you get some bookkeeping work to, you know, to account for a lot, because you know, there's certain reports that you've got to be able to separate things, but that's journal, you know, that's journal work and things like that. That's doable from an accounting standpoint. But you know, what other groups?
When I wrote a piece called "Breaking New Ground" a few years ago, when we were talking about these issues, and staffing and educational program was a subcommittee, contracted services, technology, operations, policies and procedures, administration, finance, and governance were the committees that I identified.
I'll wait and see if she types up that fast as she goes along.
No, I'm writing down the name of the piece you wrote.
Well, can we get a copy of that?
Oh, absolutely.
I'd love to, yeah.
I
I
could
was
just,
gonna Google it.
you know,
I didn't.
if you find it, if you find it in Google, that would be interesting, wouldn't it? It is not in the ERIC system. It's just a
Oh,
good piece.
I
It's
thought that was
helpful.
cute because you were typing so
And
fast.
I also have a piece that I will share with you down the line called 100 Steps. And 100 Steps talks about each step you have to go through to create your school system. And I'm just in the process of revising that. But I think that you build a broad base when you make those committees, and that's a way to get people involved and get people talking. And some of the things that I've identified here helps frame their task. And we have to look at it as identifying the issues, not necessarily we're going to withdraw, so this is what we need to do. What are the issues that we need to face should we consider withdrawal? And then you just have to get, I think in Sebago we had about 70 people involved in these committees.
You had a good crew.
A really good crew. I think the other one that was just overwhelming was in the town of Eustis, Stratton Eustis, if you're familiar with that area. We had about 80 volunteers. I mean, that's almost the whole town.
Yeah.
Okay. But it plays out differently in
Where's
each
Eustis
town.
at?
Right.
Okay.
Towards like Jackson.
Oh, up top, all right.
But it's, you know, Saddleback area.
I'm an original
No.
Pennsylvania person, so that's
So-
fine.
Stratton Eustis is in the shadow of Sugarloaf.
Okay.
Okay, and half of the staff that runs Sugarloaf USA live in Stratton Eustis, and the other half live in Kingfield or for Point South. So you know, really a lot like Raymond, a lot of young committed parents to quality education. So that probably has been one of the withdrawal success stories across the state.
That list, because we're looking for applications, would be a really good thing to send out applications. These are the groups we're looking for people to be on. Because if we list what they are, somebody can come back and say, I know the technology, I know the education part of it. Somebody giving me a name of somebody that was on Egypt Road, that she just moved here, that she's a former teacher. You know what I mean? That
Those are
possibly.
the ideal, you know, people who have an interest.
Well, exactly.
really,
So
yeah.
that would be, so if we put the ad out that we're looking for people to be on subcommittees, put what list you would like to be on, that would pull people, because they're gonna think that they can't get on, you know,
It
and
might be helpful to give just a little bit of an idea of time commitment too, because maybe that could be what's turning people away, is they don't want to get involved in something that might be more of a commitment than they can do. So if we, I know it's hard, again, no, sitting in this seat, I know it's hard to judge time commitments, but
The
this
financial
might
group,
be
you guys
good.
met on your own when
Yeah.
we were doing it last time. So the financial
Oh,
committee kind
these
of.
subcommittees would
Yeah,
meet on their
They
own.
meet on
Yeah.
their own, and
Yeah.
then they come back and they give a report to the overall.
Which,
Yeah.
Would
but
be
I agree
less.
with you,
It's the
yeah.
only logical way to do it, because, you know, otherwise, you can't have, you can't have an effective meeting with 70 people in the room.
No.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's one person trying to take on everything like we're trying to take on, and now we have it
Yeah.
broken down into like 10, 12 different departments,
Second.
yeah.
Don?
It occurs to me that we have a lot of constituent groups already.
Dawn,
You,
you're the town manager and you're.
yeah, we all have mics in
We
front
have
of
a lot
us.
of groups already established. You know, we have the age-friendly committee, we have our library committee, you know, we have recreation committees, we have the various school committees that already exist. So it would seem to me that it might make sense to solicit, you know, folks from those groups. I mean, not every group may provide, you know, input or a representative to apply for membership, and you can't let it get too large, too unwieldy. You know, you can't have a 70 or 80 person committee. But if you got 15 people, maybe, that represented the range of, you know, folks in the community demographically, folks from the, you know, the PTO, folks who are older people concerned about, you know, a different set of issues perhaps than young parents. But I think we could help, the town could help with our, you know, ability to message via the internet and Facebook and
Or the sign out
or the
front.
electronic sign. We have a number of different ways that we can get the word out. So I would be willing and wanting to help you do that. And but I would look to those natural groups. And at the town office, I can tell you that I hear a range of opinion about this. It's all over the place, so I would agree with that. There are people who, right now, in the absence of any information, are really against it. There are other people who think it's the greatest thing and they're really for it. And they don't really know what they're really against or for, in my opinion, right now. So I think to get them in the room and say, what is it that you're concerned about? You know, to tell us what your thoughts are, and then that may help you form a framework or a basis of, you know, what kind of questions you need to answer.
I think that's a great idea. It's a really good suggestion.
So at the next meeting, Rolf, are we looking at subcommittees to set up after we read Mark's piece on
Yeah.
how to do this?
I don't want to heighten your anticipation too
Mark,
much.
I'm on the edge of my seat here.
But I mean,
I was going to Google you tonight.
It might be a good cure for
yeah, if
insomnia.
nothing else, it gives some general landmarks.
Right.
Short and
And
sweet is
I-
better
and
for
we
me.
can-
I think you know, it helps you focus on what are those key issues.
Yeah.
You keep
going
us
forward.
focused in line, and so.
Try to.
Yeah.
I have a volunteer, actually, questionnaire that I need to review and send along. Sometimes you have people who want to be on every committee, and that becomes problematic. People have a high level of interest and so forth. But I'll send both of those pieces out, and you can use them as you see fit. It might be helpful for us to know, to have the meeting where we know initially what your priorities are, as you represent these constituents, and I think we have a nice balance here. You know, and that might help me think about any changes I might make to the, you know, the task of the subcommittee. But I don't know how you feel about that, but.
Yeah, so I mean, what we could do, you know, we could have a meeting in the short term where we do that. That would be an executive session meeting.
Correct.
And then we can either, you know, the option is to come out of executive session and then go into looking at subcommittees, or we either, you know, we can kind of, you know, we'll kind of have to work that through and see what's the best approach on that. But clearly, when we're, you know, if we're talking together, that's going to be an executive session meeting. Yeah.
Exactly.
You know, so by nature of that, you probably wouldn't have a lot of people that would want to come to that meeting because they're not going to see anything.
That's right. That's really frustrating for the public.
Yeah, I mean, it's frustrating. You come here and all of a sudden, okay, I mean, we have the choice, to either go in the back room, or if no one's here, then we
Just
can,
kick 'em all out,
we just shut the mics
Sure,
off
yeah.
and do it that way.
That is-
So I mean, it almost looks like that, the logic would say that was to be two separate events.
So are we on number 9 here about
Yes.
how often are we gonna meet?
Right. We are. We're flowing right along, Joe.
We're doing well.
See that work, see?
We'll get Kate
We're gonna get
Holman's
Kate
house
outta
so she can
here.
get
That's the selectmen meetings, it's like, let's get in, let's get out. Yeah.
But I mean, from a typical standpoint, once you kind of have you've now kind of established where the negotiating position is going to be. You now are at the point where you're starting to have subcommittees do work. How often, once you get there, how often was the main committee meeting?
Well, I think the urgency is different depending on your current circumstance. At this point, there's no impending withdrawal.
Right.
You haven't taken the vote to withdraw and say, you're really doing investigation. And so I don't think the frequency needs to be, I mean, as long as you can maintain a level of enthusiasm,
That's-
the frequency might not
momentum.
be more than a couple times a month or once a month. I like the town manager's position. Let's tap into some existing committees, because Raymond ran its own school system
For a long time.
For a long
Years.
time. So you've got lots of history and expertise. Some of the school districts that we work with, towns just don't have a clue. And somebody says, we got 100 steps? I mean, this is not Mother May I here. I mean, we're going to get this done, okay? So, but I don't think that's going to be quite the case with you folks, because I'm not saying it's best for you to do that, but you have some history
Yeah.
in knowing how to do that. That's my
I
only
think-
point.
I think 3 of us were on committees when
Yeah.
Raymond used to run its own school.
Yeah, I was the school board chair for
Yeah, me
2
too.
years, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that's what a lot of the people are feeling confident about when they signed the petition was, we did this before, we did great before. So it's not that big fear of, oh my God, we've never been alone, which I think would even be me as a parent scare me. Like, what's it gonna be looking like, and something like that. And I think a lot of the teachers, we still have quite a few teachers that,
Well, I mean, and I think, what has to be appreciated at that level too is that you've got a lot of new people in the town and things like that really don't have the institutional knowledge that says, hey, we ran a school system here for 40 years.
the school of
And
excellence.
we did a lot of things. We did, the reason we got into the RSU was because of Baldacci.
But
I mean,
and let's not
and-
forget, Ralph, that we also have a long history with Wyndham.
Yep.
Mhm.
Well,
We
absolutely.
were a school union with Wyndham back in the
Yeah.
60s and 70s.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
He's like this history book over and over again.
So,
I think that
Yeah.
that institutional history is important.
Yeah.
As you work through the process.
But, as I say, a lot of people that have, and I'm not saying this is an absolute statement, but a lot of, there may be many people that have the fear because they don't understand, they don't have the knowledge that says, hey,
We were by ourselves.
we've done this before. It's not our first time out of the block. So there is some history there that a lot of people may not know. Because if
Right.
they've only been in town since we're the RSU, they don't
Right.
necessarily know what the setup was prior to that, and that's logic.
Can I ask you a question? You've seen these withdrawals and towns have withdrawn. Has anyone really failed at withdrawal? Like, after they withdraw, has it fallen apart for them?
This is good, they have to think about it, look.
Yeah, it is. We did some research when we were working with Sebago and they asked, can we talk to some other school districts who've withdrawn? And and hear of their experience. And so we gave them some names, and they did, they did the contacts and got letters and so forth. And I think that the sense of it was, that they were really pleased with their experience,
Right.
okay? And in a lot of these cases, it was where they were gonna lose their school, okay? I think there were a few that were concerned that it was gonna cost them more money, and it did.
And then, yeah,
And it did. And there was some feedback from the town on those issues. I don't think that they regretted it. They would regretted that it was costing them more, but and in other cases, it didn't cost them more, they saved. And so they, and they had control of their program and their school, and they couldn't go to the table and be outvoted, and that was one of the pluses for
Right.
them. Dan?
Yeah, I can't think of any situations that have been involved in where there was
buyer's
buyer's
remorse.
remorse, yeah.
Yeah, buyer's remorse.
Yeah,
I think we're at, what, 26
Yeah.
or 28
Wow,
withdrawals
that's great.
across the state.
I think local control is important to a lot of people.
Mhm.
And I think in the last time, that's one of the things we heard of the most. Is, there's 6 Wyndham people, 3 Raymond people on the committee.
Yes, sir.
Doesn't matter what Raymond says.
Yeah.
It probably does matter, but does it,
Yeah, but that's
if Raymond-
perception.
Yeah, the perception is,
Perception is.
you can't ever win a vote.
Right.
And even if you convince a couple Wyndham people, you're still not gonna win the
No.
vote. And that is a concern to some. We've
Yeah.
heard that
Well,
concern.
it actually swings 2 ways in regard to that, because, if you get down to something that, like the budget that requires, even if all of Raymond were to vote no, you still probably aren't gonna, you still wouldn't carry, because Wyndham has the population to
Sure.
overvote.
Right.
It hasn't, that hasn't been a big issue. When you look at the numbers, it's still been a predominant number in both towns that did it. But the realization is that if that ever happened, if all of Raymond said no, we still could have it turn against us, because Wyndham has the numbers.
I
Just,
think,
facts of life.
What we've dealt with in some communities is what I call the death by 1,000 slices, where you may have a school and all of a sudden it's a K-6 and then it becomes a K-4.
Oh, yeah.
And then it becomes, and they're not closing the school, so the statutes regarding school closure don't come into play. And Limestone is a good example of this. Caribou, Limestone, Stockholm in that RSU. Caribou voted to close Limestone High School in April for the next September.
wow.
So admitted a very small high school, but they basically had no recourse.
because all the grades were in one location, so it wasn't considered
So
a
you
school closure.
didn't close.
Talk about
close
a
school.
declining population.
Yeah.
Sure, declining.
Yeah, but when you lose a school in a town, you
Yeah.
lose a lot. You lose that, and and people have said they don't care if they have to pay more if they have a say over their child's education and have a say in the community with their schools. They want their kids to have everything. Everybody does. I get that, but they're willing to pay more for it to have it. And
Yeah, I don't
There's
sense
just-
that situation of, them closing little by little, being an
no,
issue
not
here
here.
at all.
No, yeah.
So I only say that.
We had to
just
fight it
reference
one
those.
year. It was on the table, closing
Oh, really?
JSMS. Yeah.
Really.
2009, I think we consolidated in 8, 9.
Right.
I think it was maybe 10 or 11. They were going to look into close Manchester School and Jordan Small, and it got nasty at these meetings, and we fought to keep it open, and yeah.
The strange thing is, me and Teresa, and I think Rolf also, were part of the formation of the RSU back in 2006, all the way to 2008. And we had a withdrawal committee in 2015. here we are again. So there's really a
Lot of
lot
history.
a lot of knowledge of what was talked about, I can tell you
Yeah.
that. So,
Okay, so, let's
So
move back.
Kate is the only breath of fresh air here. Is that what was-
Yeah, we
Yeah.
called that. Appreciate that, yeah.
We're just
Other than
old.
the new people.
Your
We're
experience.
gonna bring her on board.
We're
with us.
experienced, that's it.
Yeah.
So if I'm hearing correctly, what we want to do is we want to look at scheduling a meeting, and so prior to that, we need to, we need to think, each of us, where are our concerns as far as what we, positions and whatnot on the separation agreement. Then Mark and Dan can start doing some work around there, and then after that, then we've got to, we need to look at what committees do we need to set up so we can start getting more, so we can kind of fill in some more there. So,
So are you saying the next meeting, we ought to come with our ideas,
Yeah.
10 to 12 ideas
Yeah.
on what we see are issues?
yes,
So individually, we each come up with our own
yeah.
and see how much overlap there
And
is.
that would,
That-
and that would be,
that'd be interesting.
and that would be an executive session meeting.
Yep.
And,
And we'll post that as an executive session, so that way
Yeah.
we're, people don't show up.
and so then, then from there, then the next step will be to start having some of the either workshops or whatever to start bringing in, okay, now what do we want this structure to look like?
But I think we should, in the meanwhile, get the application, the word out for, again, taking on applications, so we can get
And
people
so
on board.
if people, if people want to send an email in regards to, that they have interest in doing it, they can send that to me. It's rolf.olson@raymondmaine.org. And if they can't remember that,
I
they
can
can,
step in here. I think you had a form last time around.
We did. Marshall's on our selectman. He's one of our, yeah.
Marshall Bullock, North Raymond Road. Last time around, you had a form that you sent out to interested parties, and it asked for their name, where they lived, and any skills they brought to
That's
the
what we're
table.
trying
And
to
that's how a lot
bring
of
up.
people got on those subcommittees last year. And while I have the podium,
yes,
I'm
sir.
going to ask my question, okay? Chris Howell in his presentation stated that we could separate Raymond and Wyndham on an ED 289. I wonder if we could ask that question officially, get Raymond separated on the ED 289, so we could take a look
279,
at what the numbers would
279
possibly be.
and- Yeah, Marshall, once you took that vote, we can request it.
He said it'd be around February that those are typically available from the department.
Yeah.
But
okay.
they do those last. Paula did warn me that last time. They
Right.
do all the other schools, and the ones that are separating, they are
Makes
at the
sense.
end of.
Okay, as long as we can get that request out there, it'll be
Yeah.
fine. Okay, thank you.
I'm looking for the application on the last process.
I mean, we're into that time of year that gets real
Oh,
funky,
yeah.
real funky on schedules.
Oh, can we do it
Real
like the night
fast.
before Thanksgiving or something?
No.
I think we had to check with their schedules first. Just, I think theirs is
Yeah,
more.
I mean, we've got a select board meeting on the 11th. When's the school board meetings?
We're every other Wednesday.
So is that the?
Our
Do
next
you
one's
guys
the
go to
28th.
Caribou?
So
all
I'm
the
looking
time
in
to go
December. Are you
negotiate
the
that?
5th
The
or
one
the
in
12th?
Limestone?
We did some, we
Skype?
we went
Oh, did
up
you?
a few times. That Mark went
think
up more
we
than
have
I.
it the
I was dying to ask that question.
So
We had a
very
lot
good.
of bonding time. with
Yeah.
Todd.
And is that
How
here?
many
or
hours is
in
this Caribou?
5.
6 hours,
Yeah.
really about six.
There's literally 6 hours in Maine
You
from
know
here.
better than
Oh,
that.
yes, you go to
No.
Fort Pitt, it's
Yeah,
another hour.
Yeah, closer
Yeah.
to get to New York. It's scary.
I think
Yeah.
farthest I've gone is Bar Harbor, so then that's only
That's
4 hours.
not- yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
At the fifth
Limestone is
window.
beyond Prescott.
Okay.
by-
So the
I used to
12th
work
is-
at Limestone
so-
Pharmacy, believe
I
it or
am
not,
gone on
back in
the
the
12th.
70s.
Wow.
Wow.
I'm
Wow.
sorry.
When the air
I'm on
base was
vacation.
there.
Right.
And it used to be busy.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
base.
where all the
I mean,
kids
the
used to be there.
I think I
Ten
have that
thousand
application in
10,000
the
on
file.
that base.
Right.
Yeah, I think
I got there somewhere.
yeah, I think I
Do
have
we
that in
have
the
to
file.
do a Wednesday?
No,
I have
we
a
don't have,
folder
we
from
don't
the
have
last
to do it
time.
Wednesday.
How does
December
Thursdays-
schedule is actually going to be a nightmare.
Thursdays?
Because I'm on vacation one week and I'm traveling
What
for work.
vacation? Who takes vacation in the winter?
Anybody does, so we have to stay here in May.
So,
How are Thursdays?
all right, so here's our, essentially here's our choice, is to look into then January instead.
I mean, I have some dates in December. I don't want to
Do you
completely.
have any, do you have anything
Yeah, I mean,
Thursdays?
clearly,
last
we,
week in
clearly we
November.
don't want to go, I mean,
I don't think you want to go too long between the
No, I
next,
don't
now and
think
the
we do
next
either.
meeting.
No,
huh?
no. I want to keep it momentum going.
Yeah. So I mean.
Does it have to be a Wednesday? I
It
mean,
does
No,
not.
he just said, what about Thursdays?
Yeah.
Tuesday or Thursday, or whatever. It doesn't have to be a Wednesday for us.
I mean, what if we looked at November
Okay.
29th, Thursday, November 29th?
Oh,
That's kind of quick, isn't
That's
it?
kind of quick.
Okay,
I was looking
sorry.
then more, if we're looking at Thursdays,
I can't figure it.
either the 6th or the 13th.
I cannot do either one of those.
How about the
But I could
4th
do
or the
Monday.
11th?
The 11th, we have a meeting.
4th I can't do,
Oh,
the
you
11th
can't.
we have budget.
Can we do Monday the 3rd?
Works for me.
I can do the
Wait,
3rd.
let's check with
Oh.
the, what do you guys have for the
Okay.
3rd?
I can do the 3rd.
Yeah, I can do the 3rd.
Oh,
Okay.
Oh, yay.
oh.
So Monday the
My
3rd?
gosh, that was
December,
actually
December
Wow,
3rd,
all of
easier
us.
than I thought it would be.
What
Same
time?
time?
6:30.
You don't want to do 6?
Well, I mean, does 6 work for people if we do 6 instead? Is-
I
6
ra-
works for me.
I'd rather
Yeah.
do 6.
Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
with you.
Yep,
Yeah.
that'll
Yeah.
work. Okay.
Oh my God, this is kind of scary how everything's kind of fallen into place.
So that one's going to be a little bit longer though, right?
Yeah.
Well,
That's the executive session.
That'll be the
Yeah.
executive session.
Right. So,
yeah, probably a couple hours.
okay.
Do you want?
I don't know when's the last time we did a couple hour meeting.
Do you want to see a
Budget.
template of issues that you might want to think about?
I want to see anything that you're willing
Yeah.
to give us, to be
Yeah,
honest.
I agree.
Okay.
Because something that
Yeah,
we
whatever.
may not think
There,
of.
there are some things that we have
yeah.
to, that are
I actually
required.
I brought copies of you. Some of you may have already have this or seen it, but this is the DOE's required elements of a withdrawal agreement.
Yeah,
So
that would be helpful.
I'll I bought those just in case we got into the discussion thing, but it probably makes sense
We
to
were
hand
thinking
those
it
out.
the same way, because I had a copy of that one.
Yeah.
Just the two to you. And
Just a caveat or disclaimer on this document is that there are some things in here that
Haven't
aren't
changed.
actually included in a withdrawal agreement, but they are things to think about. So, for example, they talk about development of a budget. Well, you don't have to develop a budget as part of a withdrawal agreement. You're going to be asked
Yeah.
yes.
in connection with
Yeah.
approval of the withdrawal agreement. What are the
Yeah.
financial implications? But
Yeah.
but
I mean, yeah,
at the very
yeah.
least, this may be
From
useful
a logic
to think about.
standpoint, when you, when you go to a vote on, a final vote on it, people are gonna wanna know, okay.
Right,
I
exactly.
mean, obviously, it can't be a final budget because
No way.
ultimately, the school board that gets created will
Right.
develop its budget, but,
And-
they wanna know within spitting distance, what are you looking at?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and it is very difficult, as the one who does those, okay? It's very difficult, especially if you're looking down a couple of years down the road. There's so many variables that you have to think about, it's just crazy, so.
It's actually interesting, which it's not so overwhelming.
It's-
Yeah, it's because you're doing it in pieces, I think.
That's right,
Yeah.
that's helpful.
But when you look at it, it's all stuff that's so logical that you assumed you were going to do this anyway.
Right.
Well, like contracts and stuff like that, you do, but you're also thinking like a handful of things. You're not thinking all the smaller things that are big things, you know what I mean? So, labor grievances, you know what I mean? And I did the collective bargaining for for the school board before.
All right,
I might have to use my old person app to read something.
so, other questions?
I know, I'm kind of.
Use-
All right,
use
so-
the app.
I got my glasses
You got the
right
app.
here, but
You know what they're gonna do? They're gonna go check out that app.
the old,
Yeah.
it's called the
So
old
Mark
person
is,
app.
Mark's gonna send us that, those bits of
Breaking new
information,
ground and.
and we'll be, we'll be thinking about what we wanna have there.
Is
so
this-
be ready for the 3rd.
Would this be, I don't know, maybe you guys can say yes or no, would this be a good idea to post this on the website with withdrawal so people can see the things that we're gonna be looking at? Because they may come up with saying, wait a second, this so-and-so really interests me. I know one of the concerns that the last withdrawal is because they were retiring and they were worried about getting just the Raymond retirement package instead of the RSU package, which I believe it was the same thing anyways, but that was one reason why they did not, but to somebody, that's important. You know what I mean? That they're thinking of retiring, how's that gonna affect them? You know, so, I don't
I
know.
think
Do we,
the more information we can provide people, the better.
well, that's one thing is, do we want,
Look at the, that may have been up in the old one.
this one? No, I don't remember ever seeing
I
this.
I remember seeing a document like this at one point, way back when.
The commissioner will require that we honor the contract
Yes,
with teachers.
and I
all
would
their-
agree on
Yeah,
that.
and all their benefits
Right.
and experience, et cetera. It's, you know, it's, if a teacher's concerned that I'll lose all this because I'm, no, you won't.
No.
No.
Well,
We have
that
to
was-
guarantee it.
That was why they got on the board
Yeah.
to make sure that that didn't happen. But like, again, that is important to them. And that's-
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Of
So,
course.
I'm not seeing a lot of forms on the last one. So,
I do remember seeing a document like this at one point.
I have a big folder,
And
though.
quite frankly, it may have been on the,
Give
state
them
side.
summary or just let them deal with that one?
so,
All right, so next meeting, December 3rd, right?
December 3rd, 6 o'clock.
Yeah,
Or just let them deal with that one?
great.
Okay.
there's certain guidelines too, and I think Chris had brought it
Huh?
up, was like
Six.
special ed students, when they first start,
6
once you
instead of 6:30.
withdraw, they have to keep their IEPs and everything the same for a year, I believe. So there's certain legal requirements regarding these students
Yeah.
that
They
we,
have the
yeah.
right to continue to, in the same placement, yeah.
Yep,
Yeah,
okay.
for a year.
Alrighty.
Motion to adjourn,
Everybody set?
Yep.
Yeah.
second.
Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you
Great.
very much, folks.
Thank you.
Thanks.